conscientiousness is the quality of being driven to do work to the highest quality and highest form of correctness. So finding high signals and studying patterns is very much a craft. It's very easy to be incorrect in a space, especially if it's a niche one that you're selling in, which I hope you're selling in a normally niche one, because really if you're spraying and praying, there's no need to watch this video at all. This is really for products that are hard to sell but have an extremely great ROI, and you really are passionate about it, and it's not just like, you know, a typical product that you wouldn't really care about selling. But if your product really is that niche, you want to make sure you come off as smart, intelligent, but still curious in the space. And so this is like magnets to people that are like you in the space and that want to be sold your product and want to learn more about the product. But you really want to make sure that you're coming into sales with an intelligent, high conscientious bar and standard. So how does my prospecting come? Background, within my first 6 months of sales, I've generated $1.5 million in pipeline, as well as sourced multi-$100,000 deals, with one of them being the fastest in company history. So my prospecting comes from just finding patterns. So a lot of patterns also come with a lot of noise. So you can think of it as like a colorblind test. And you want to make sure that you stay as close to 100% correct as you can, than 70% correct. Now, how do you spot these problems or these patterns? If I am in a space of startups today, as an example, I want to make sure that when I'm scrolling through my X feed, I am seeing things that are ringing bells for me. So if I start seeing a lot of open source projects that are focused on IDEs, I want to take note of maybe there's some new IDEs in the space that are getting funding that is inspiring these open source projects to like launch. And what is even the purpose of open source projects to even launch in the first place? And also another thing is that my background is targeting developers, really. So this is going to be very engineering focused. So I like to think that there's no pure coincidences in the space. There is always a motivation to why a new startup just got funding. They will literally write it in their like announcement, as well as why an open source project is going viral. Why is a VC submitting their theses for what they want in startups? Okay, there's always something going on in the background. Another example, if I start seeing sandboxes popping up in my Twitter all the time, I am going to look at why and what are people caring about and what other companies are making sandboxes that I can reach out to. So another tip is look inwards to understand outwards. An underutilized source that I think sellers have in their back pocket that they don't use enough is themselves. So your company has a lot more connections in the world than just your customers. If you built an open source project, who is using that? If you sponsor open source projects, who knows about those projects and who actively uses those projects? If you follow a certain type of methodology in your niche, who else does that niche? If you have investors, who is also being invested by those people? If you have customers and startup batches, who else in that batch could use you for the same purpose? It's always best to start from the inside to the outside. If you have a good grasp on the type of communities that you're in, you can track down people that are either in those communities or aware of those communities. So this is actually an example I have from when I booked a meeting with a unicorn startup that has just raised their Series H funding, and they're a really hard startup to get a hold of. But basically, my company had signed a company who the founders created this viral open source project. And this project is used in a lot of other companies. I went looking for any engineers that worked with that open source project in their company. And I found one engineer is employed at that Series H. So basically I just came to them with this information about how we recently signed with this company and if they were curious to see how we could support their work using this at that startup. And so they said yes, and they agreed to a meeting. So that is an example of basically just understanding where we can fit in a community, like because of like what we have done, and then looking outward to find, okay, what is the specific scenario I'm looking for in order to draw it back in. Okay, so basically here are my closing remarks. This is where conscientiousness really kicks in. You don't want to be just looking for anyone that briefly mentions this thing, briefly mentions that thing. I think something that is a good example is like this. Some people spray and pray anyone that's following their company's page on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn Sales Nav, you're able to just like see whoever's following your page, and then you'll be like, hey, I saw you're following the page. If you follow the if you're following the Audi LinkedIn page, that doesn't necessarily mean you want to buy a car. Like, that is the same premise with this. If some developer is following a project, that doesn't necessarily mean that they care about that project like at all. So that's why you need to find like the deep enthusiasts in the space and like stack signals to then justify to yourself like, okay, they probably like know something a little deeper than just simply interests. Like they probably either work with this or like big advocates for the space. So you need to truly step into your prospect's shoes and ask yourself, will this person actually know what the F I am talking about? So if I were to start over and if I were to do this like from day one, I would probably read all the internal communications that are in my company's Slack. Read also everything on the website, read the blogs, read the posts, and find niche things that your company does, and then find the people behind them. From there, I would use Prompt Cowboy, which is a prompt engineering tool. It basically just makes prompts a little better, and use that to then put into Claude and AI to prospect deeper into those spaces and find those communities, find those people that are the like deep enthusiasts within those communities. So my last note I'd like to add is just make sure to keep your finger on the pulse, and information in this space can be as sensitive as a refresh on your X feed. So just stay diligent, but stay sharp.